Quiet quitting has been a very popular and trending term these few days. You realize that actually quiet quitting has been spoken about and discussed by many other people, but what are my real thoughts behind this? A quick introduction to quiet quitting is not going above and beyond in your job, doing the bare minimum such that you don't get fired, you just don't exceed expectations, you will just meet the expectations set off by your boss, your manager or the company, right? You don't do anything extra because most probably you're not getting paid for it. And that is quiet quitting for you. It's not like what some people think, just quietly leave the company without sending their resignation letter with no notice. Okay, that's not quiet quitting. I don't know what's that called. That's called ghosting, right? So you see this term called quiet quitting is kind of funny, right? There's nothing quiet about it. There's nothing about quitting. It's just maybe doing your job by in a more demure manner, right? You are not going to chiong for the next promotion. You are not overdoing or overperforming to show your boss that you are capable of taking more responsibilities. And maybe what has driven this trend is because of the pandemic. You see, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed everyone around the world on how people work. Because do you realize that pre-COVID, a lot of people actually tied their self-worth, their identity to their job and their titles, right? Everyone needs to be in the office, and if you're wearing a manager badge or a director badge, you're well respected in the company, because you're seen as a senior position within the company and there's a lot of power you can wield. Now, regarding whether that is a correct mentality, we can discuss this in another video, because today I want to focus on this thing on quiet quitting. You see, after COVID has set in and people are all working from home instead of offices, then there comes in the question whether there are boundaries to work. And a lot of people realize that work from home is graying out these boundaries, right? Like last time, the commute between your workplace and your home is a boundary. If you transited from your office to back to your home, then you're considered off work and your boss, your managers will not touch you because it is already off work hours. But the pandemic or work from home structure has blurred this line, right? Because your work location is at home and sometimes the boundary isn't as clear because you're now considered readily available, where you can just hop onto your laptop, log into the VPN, and you are available to respond to the emails even after your 9 to 5 work hours. And this has caused a major work from home burnout for some of these people, right? Because of the lack of boundaries between their subordinates and their superiors, and people realize that they are overdoing their work, overperforming, over-delivering without getting the recognition that they want. Now, it's fine if companies actually recognize that talent, right? Recognize their efforts, but I can say that most companies, they actually do not recognize it and take it as a given. So despite all the extra efforts that the employee has delivered, okay, even beyond their working hours, their normal working hours, but they realize that this is not seen by the company because the company cannot even see the employee and not even recognize the efforts or the additional work done by the employee beyond their work hours. And that led to this trend called quiet quitting, because employees realize that no matter what they do, they also won't be rewarded by the company. So why not just do the bare minimum and get their monthly paycheck and hope that it's just another uneventful month, so that they don't have to put in additional work hours to entertain their bosses or entertain the company policies, right? Like if everything is urgent, then nothing is urgent. Then you should just take things at your own pace. So is quiet quitting really right? I think there's too many things to talk about in this kind of work culture thing. But in today's video, I'll focus on what is important to these three generations, right? Specifically the Generation X, the Generation Y, or more commonly known as Millennials, and the Generation Z or Z. These are the more up and coming generation in our lifetime. But before I go into the specific details, let's have a message from the sponsor. I want to ask you one simple question. Do you believe in Tesla? Because you have missed the free Apple share, free Microsoft share, and even free Google share in the previous Weibo campaigns. But do you know that Weibo has upped their game again? And this time round, they are giving you $130 worth of Tesla shares. You heard that right? It's $130 worth of TSLA shares. That is the record high. What you need to do is to deposit at least 2,000 Singapore dollars and make one buy order of US stock or ETF. Also, this time round, you have to complete an options trade, so you can buy a put or a call option for the short term, and at the same time maintaining your balance of 2000 SGD by not making any withdrawal orders for 30 days. And you must be wondering why $130, right? Maybe it's related to the Tesla stock split recently from 1 stock into 3 stocks. So hurry up and sign up for a Weibo account using my referral link down below. Alright, welcome back. Let's start with the first generation being Gen X. These are people born between the years of 1964 to 1981. So employees who belong to this generation right now are currently in their 40s or their 50s, and they most likely have worked like more than 15 to 20 years even in the same company, because that was the trend last time, right? Be loyal to the company, work for the same company, and maybe you could enjoy some pension benefits at the end of your employment or retirement. Now, with the many years of job experience and work experience, maybe within the same company itself, they may have promoted over the ranks and maybe now become a manager, senior manager, or even director level for these people. And because of their age, right, they are now in the 40s, in the 50s, they risk of finding another job in another company, because employers are still very sensitive to age. They want to have longevity in this role, and they felt that maybe the younger folks, the younger people, the millennials and the Gen Zs will have a longer runway if they want to employ them into the same company, but not much so for Gen X people, because they have been working like 20 years, you know. So the fact is, for Gen X people, it is much more difficult for them to job hop because of the age, and also the fact that there are much more limited opportunities for people at their level, because who is going to hire someone with 20 years of work experience? Most likely you'll command a very high pay, and if you were to job hop at 20% pay grade increment, then that is really massive, right? For example, if you are earning $10,000, a 20% increase, that's like 12k, you know. That is massive on companies' payroll. So most likely these Gen X employees have to stay within the same organization for the rest of their life and work till the end of retirement. But you realize that this may be their last company that they are working for because of their age, and they may be unhappy at work because maybe their roles and titles change, their responsibilities change, the people they work with has changed, or even some company restructuring, right, that make them really unhappy with their new boss, or maybe how the management direction has changed. That is not something that they signed up for when they started at the companies 20 years ago. And that is why for Gen X employees, some of them have considered quiet quitting, because they cannot find a new job that replaces the current one with such pay benefits and also the job title in itself. They would rather the company one day announce that there is a golden handshake package for them, and golden handshake means that the company is giving you a very large monetary benefit to offer you to leave the company because of company restructuring, or that role is no longer required, right? For these Gen X employees, this is the biggest opportunity that they can get to be offered a golden handshake, and they could leave the company with very good rewards because of that golden handshake package. And that is why within the period where you are offered a golden handshake, or maybe some bonus payouts, then maybe there is some time period that you need to fulfill. Like if you are involved in a special project, maybe that takes like 3 years, so they will give you a contract like 3 years, you stay within the same company, then maybe the end of 3 years, then they will let you leave with a bonus payout. So that's why quiet quitting will appeal to them, because they know that there's an end in mind, and they do not want to overperform and over-deliver anymore, because at the end of it, they know that it's a golden handshake and they have to leave the company anyway. That's why some of them prefer to quiet quit. But what about those without the golden handshake? Then they realize that there's nothing they want to do anymore, and they don't want to progress further up in the corporate ladder, because if they progress up even further, they have kids and they have parents to feed, and at that age their parents are growing older day by day. They may be visiting the hospitals, they need more time to send their parents to hospital visits, all this medical screening stuff, and maybe they also have kids at the same time as well. So for these kids, they are going through their growing up years, in their teenage years, and they want to be part of their children's growing up years, right, especially during teenage life. So they want to spend more time with the children, especially during like major examination periods, during the O-levels, the A-levels and all that stuff. So they realize that they cannot take up more responsibilities at work because they want to allocate more time for their family. And this is for the Gen X people who are in their 40s and their 50s. So you see, this quiet quitting phenomenon for Gen X people is very common because they want to have more time for their own instead of slogging it out for the company. They may have worked like tens of years within the same company, and they are getting fed up of such company and corporate kind of thing. They don't buy into that story already. They are not new employees, you know. They are very well versed in all this company politics and employee engagement, all this stuff. And I'm sure in some of your companies, you have some really senior workers in their 50s, right? You know that they have the wealth and the knowledge to become a manager, but they never took up that position, right? They just want to go home on time, be an individual contributor, doing their role very well and executing it, despite them having the skills even better than their current manager, right? Because they're so senior, they are so skilled in what they do for many years, and they just hone their skills over the years, you know, and they become a really specialist in in that area, but they do not want to get promoted because they want to allocate more time for themselves. And that's why maybe that is considered quiet quitting, right? Because you're not taking more responsibilities, you're having more time for yourself, for your family, and maybe that's why quiet quitting is really appealing to them. Now imagine you are an employee in your 40s and 50s now, and you have parents to feed, child to feed as well. You're in the sandwich generation most likely. So there comes a point where you need to sacrifice, right? Whether it's for your work or maybe it's for your family. You have to make the right decision. Now some people will forego family for work, and that's nothing wrong about it because people all want to climb higher. Now if you're that ambitious, that's fine, but you want to know that there are some sacrifices that you have to make. Maybe sometimes you have to miss your kids' sports day event, or maybe their awards presentation ceremony, or you have to miss some of those visits where your parents have to visit the hospital or clinics alone, and that may not put you at a peace of mind. So life is always all about trade-off, and I realize that I've been rambling about Gen X for one whole period, so maybe that is a video in itself. Maybe the next time I'll talk more about Millennials and Gen Zs because that's more applicable to my wider audience right now. But anyway, let me know, right, whether this quiet quitting thing is really applicable to you, and you want to hear more about my opinion towards the Millennial generation or even the Gen Z generation. Because today's video I'll just focus on Gen X. There's so much to talk about Gen X really. What more to talk about Millennials and Gen Zs, right? But I felt that I really sent a very strong message, an important message last year when I did this video called Why You Will Never Retire. And I talked about things that are not so frivolous, but the video didn't do very well. So I hope that this time you can click on it and see what were my thoughts back then. And if it's really good, then I'll do a follow-up to that.